Hello, welcome to Simple Spanish Sentences. This is the 15th video in a playlist on Spanish verb tenses and moods. In it, I'm going to share some sentences that show a specific use of the imperfect tense. It occurs when we use one verb in the imperfect tense together with another verb that's also in the imperfect tense. More specifically, these sentences will describe what one used to do when one used to live in a particular place. The verb that describes what one used to do and the verb for used to live will both be in the imperfect tense. The actions mentioned in these sentences are done in a more habitual sense, or as part of one's routine, rather than as isolated acts or events. Hopefully the following examples will clarify how this is done. Additionally, I hope you're already familiar with how the imperfect tense is conjugated. Although I'll briefly describe how it's done here, it may be helpful to learn more about it by watching some of my previous videos so that you don't get overwhelmed. The verbs that will be used in this video are to work, which is trabajar, to sell, which is vender, to write, which is escribir, and to live, which is vivir. I in Spanish is yo, and to conjugate this, trabajar becomes trabajaba, vender becomes vendía, escribir becomes escribía, and vivir becomes vivía. I used to work in a bank when I used to live in New York is yo trabajaba en un banco cuando vivía en Nueva York. I used to run in the park when I used to live in New York is yo corría en el parque cuando vivía en Nueva York. And I used to write books when I used to live in New York is yo escribía libros cuando vivía en Nueva York. You in Spanish when speaking to one person informally is tú, and to conjugate this, trabajar becomes trabajabas, vender becomes vendías, escribir becomes escribías, and vivir becomes vivías. You used to work in a hospital when you used to live in Mexico is trabajabas en un hospital cuando vivías en México. You used to run on the beach when you used to live in Mexico is corrías en la playa cuando vivías en México. And you used to write novels when you used to live in Mexico is escribías novelas cuando vivías en México. He in Spanish is él, she is ella, and you when talking to one person formally is usted. To conjugate this, trabajar becomes trabajaba, correr becomes corría, escribir becomes escribía, and vivir becomes vivía. Pedro used to work with Pablo when he used to live in New York is Pedro trabajaba con Pablo cuando vivía en Nueva York. Maria used to run with Isabel when she used to live in New York is Maria corría con Isabel cuando vivía en Nueva York. And you used to write with Isabel when you used to live in New York is usted escribía con Isabel cuando vivía en Nueva York. We in Spanish is nosotros or nosotras, and to conjugate this, trabajar becomes trabajábamos, correr becomes corríamos, escribir becomes escribíamos, and vivir becomes vivíamos. We used to work with Pablo when we used to live in Mexico is trabajábamos con Pablo cuando vivíamos en México. We used to run with Isabel when we used to live in Mexico is corríamos con Isabel cuando vivíamos en México. And we used to write with Isabel when we used to live in Mexico is escribíamos con Isabel cuando vivíamos en México. You in Spanish when speaking to multiple people informally and in Spain is vosotros or vosotras. And to conjugate this, trabajar becomes trabajabais, correr becomes corríais, escribir becomes escribíais, and vivir becomes vivíais. You used to work in a bank with Pablo when you used to live in New York is trabajabais en un banco con Pablo cuando vivíais en Nueva York. You used to run in the park with Isabel when you used to live in New York is corríais en el parque con Isabel cuando vivíais en Nueva York. And you and Maria used to write books with Isabel when you used to live in New York is tú y María escribíais libros con Isabel cuando vivíais en Nueva York. They in Spanish is ellos or ellas, and you when talking to multiple people is ustedes. To conjugate this, trabajar becomes trabajaban, correr becomes corrían, escribir becomes escribían, and vivir becomes vivían. They used to work in a hospital with Pablo when they used to live in Mexico is ellos or ellas trabajaban en un hospital con Pablo cuando vivían en México. Maria and Martha used to run on the beach with Isabel when they used to live in Mexico is Maria y Marta corrían en la playa con Isabel cuando vivían en México. And you and Maria used to write novels with Isabel when you used to live in Mexico is tú y María escribían novelas con Isabel cuando vivían en México. That's all for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did and would like to support this channel, you can do that in a number of ways. Also, if you noticed any mistakes, feel free to let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and take care.